Hey bitches, it's S. the gardening hoe. This is episode 1 of my Canna Hydro Grow 7.0 series. Today we'll be going over germination, seedling care, and the transplant process. But before we get started, smoke break. I'm growing 3 plants. Mimosa Evo and Glookies are from Barneys farm, and Amnesia Haze is from Royal Queen Seeds. I soak my seeds in water for 12 to 24 hours before putting them in my mini hydro setup. For my mini hydro setup, I filled it with distilled water, soaked the brown peat moss sponges, added them to the basket, placed the seed in, and covered it with a dome for humidity. The humidity should be at least 70% during germination, ideally in the mid-80s. Taproots appeared the next day, then I lowered the humidity to the 70s, and I removed the domes once the seedlings fully germinated. I also added an air pump to provide oxygen to the roots. I actually did damage one root slightly, and I definitely was not panicking at all. I had to remove the seed coat from one because it was on too tight, but I try to avoid this because the seedlings are fragile. After the first set of true leaves come in, I start them on a feeding schedule using the provided nutrients, checking pH and ppm levels for optimal growth. I'm maintaining a pH between 5.5 and 6.5, with 5.8 being ideal, and starting around 200 to 250 ppm for each plant at this stage. The plants responded well to the nutrients, growing significantly within a day. I transplanted them a week later, which was Sunday the 18th. I'm transplanting them into a larger DWC or deep water culture setup, which is the hydro method that I use. To transplant a plant into a DWC setup, you need a reservoir. I'm using a 5-gallon bucket that's black to prevent algae growth. I also have a lid, which is called a net pot. You also need water, an air pump, air stones, airline tubing, clay pebbles, nutrients, a pH and ppm meter, pH up and down, and your plant, of course. First, I washed the buckets, net pots, and the clay pebbles. Then I filled the buckets with about 3.5 gallons of water per bucket, and I measured out my nutrients. I always start off with CalMag, and I gave every bucket 4 milliliters per gallon. Then I add the Flora series nutrients according to this feed chart, making sure I mix everything thoroughly. I always wait a few minutes after adding each nutrient to check the ppm and make sure that I'm not overfeeding them. After adding all the nutrients, the ppm was at about 750 for each bucket, which is a little bit higher than I usually go at this stage, but these strains are supposed to be heavy feeders, so I'm rolling with it. The pH was in range for each of the buckets. They all started off at about 5.9 and went up to about 6 in the morning. The pH is going to naturally lower over time, so I'm going to leave it until it gets too low. Next, I removed the plant from the peat moss, fed the roots through the holes of the net pot, and backfilled the pot with the clay pebbles. It's important to have an inch or so of space between the net pot and the water so the plants aren't drowning. Normally, my plants look rough after a transplant, but these ladies have grown so much in just a few hours. I also set up a timer for the light so it's on a schedule. Photos need around 18 or more hours of light in the vegetative stage. When I want to flip them to flower, all I have to do is give them 12 hours or less of light per day, and it'll trigger the plant to enter the flowering stage. I'm continuously monitoring the environment daily and adjusting as needed. Stay tuned to see how the plants handle the transplant process. That's it for today, plant peeps. Bye, bitches. See you later, hoes.